Good morning. Welcome back to our Mathematics of Investment class. And our schedule is every Tuesday, 10:30 to 11:30 in the morning. And we are now on our week 5 of our discussion. And this time, we're going to discuss about promissory note and discount note. Okay, so we are already done about simple and discount. Okay, simple discount and simple interest. So this time we're going to discuss about promissory note and discount note. So have you ever lent a friend or family member some money on a promise they would pay you back on a specific date? So, ayan. So, nakapagpautang ka na ba? Halimbawa sa mga friend mo, sa mga kakilala mo, or sa mga family member mo ng pera. And then, nag-promise sila na babayaran nila ito sa ganitong araw. Okay? So, kapag yes, so lahat naman nagpapautang, lahat numuutang, then you are already experienced with promissory notes. Ayan. So, example is, just before class, a fellow student and close friend announces that the two of you should go for a coffee afterwards. Okay, so after ng class natin, magko-coffee daw kayo. And then, that friend of yours seems a little tense, but he says there is no trouble. So, you contain your curiosity until you are seated in a quiet corner of your local Starbucks. Then, and then, he asked if he can, so nagtanong siya if he can borrow $5,000. So, gamitin natin dollars. Okay. From you to pursue a new entrepreneurial venture. And then explaining that he already tried to get the money from the bank. But too much red tape. So, may mga red tape daw. Yan, too much red tape was involved and the interest rate was outrageous. So, alam naman natin pag nangungutang tayo sa bank, kailangan magbayad ng interest. Okay? Especially kapag now overdue na, may nabot na ng due date. So, you have the money. You have the money saved up in your account. And after your friend lays out all of the details, you feel satisfied that he has a good idea. Na-feel mo may good idea siya, 'di ba? Gano'n tayo kapag nakukuha tayo sa magandang salita o napapaano tayo do'n. And then, before lending your friend the money, though it might be worthwhile to put this down in writing just in case matters turns sour, right? Ayan, kapag, kasi may mga time kasi na kailangan na natin yung pera tapos hindi na siya nagbabayad, pinagtataguan ka na. So kailangan natin itong uh, we have to put this down in writing, okay? And by loaning your friend the money, you would be foregoing at least the interest on your savings and feel that it is fair to charge your friend the same interest rate so that you are not hurt financially. So, this time, dito, a promissory note not seems a good path to take. So, kailangan mo ng promissory note. Siyempre, paano kung kailangan mo na yung pera mo sa ganitong araw tapos hindi siya makakabayad? O, edi, yung interest lang muna yung bayaran niya. Halimbawang hindi niya maibigay muna yung kabuuan na hiniram niya. So, yun yung gamit ng promissory note. So, for our discussion, we're going to learn about the characteristics of short-term promissory notes. And then, we will also learn on how to calculate the maturity value of a promissory note along with its selling price if you want to cash it in before it matures. So, what are promissory notes? Ano ba yung mga promissory notes na yan? Promissory notes are borrowing tools that allow both companies and people to get financing from a source other than a bank. Okay? And the money is borrowed from other people or companies who are willing to provide the financing. So, lalo na ngayon, usong-uso yung financing, di ba? Meron dyan yung weekly, monthly, quarterly, ganun, semi-annually. And then, the Bills of Exchange Act defines a promissory note as an unconditional promise in writing. Okay, an unconditional promise in writing made by one person to another, signed by the maker, engaging to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to or to the order of a specified person or to bearer. Okay, so promissory notes are commonly referred to as just as notes, right? And dito, a promissory note is not the same as an IOU. Okay, alam mo ba yung IOU? Like I owe you. Yeah, I owe you. Okay. So, an IOU simply acknowledges debt but contains no promise of payment or repayment, no timelines, and no consequences. But a promissory note includes this element. So, kailangan may promise of repayment. Kailangan, halimbawa, pinautang kita ngayon, mag-promise ka na babayaran mo after 2 months. Ganon. Ganon yung promissory notes. Kapag IOU, hindi na kailangan yon. Okay? So, dun sa opening natin na example ko kanina, it is probably best to create a promissory note that clearly details your agreement and terms. So, kailangan ng agreement at saka terms. And this allows both of you, yung humihiram at ikaw na nagpapahiram, to have peace of mind in the transaction. And in the event something goes wrong, both of you have a legally binding written record of your transaction. So, kapag uh, dumating yung araw na nagka-problema, halimbawa, pinagtataguan ka na niya, at least meron kang pinanghahawakan, di ba? Okay. So, to illustrate here, we have here a promissory note. So, we have to illustrate this one with an example from our promissory note. So, we have here the borrower, yung number 1. Ayan. So, when we say borrower, this is the individual who is borrowing the money. Okay? So, sometimes known as the maker, promisor, or the payor. And it is best to provide details such as the name and address. Siyempre, pag may gumagamit tayo ng promissory note, kailangan details, okay, yung borrower, para alam mo kung saan mo siya hahanapin. So, complete name and address to clearly establish an identity. Okay? So, nowadays, hindi lang name and address ang kinukuha natin sa mga borrowers. IDs din. Okay? So, mostly yung mga borrowers, halimbawa, ipapromise sila, kunwari wala silang promissory note, nag-iiwan na lang sila ng IDs. Okay? So, may mga contact numbers na doon, yung mga valid IDs natin. So, yun yung borrower. For lender naman, this is the individual who is loaning the money. Okay? Na it should be repaid. Okay. Siyempre naman. And sometimes, they are known as the payee or the issuer. So, they are the one loaning the money. That should be repaid. Okay? So, those are lender. Sila yung lender. And, as with the borrower, detailed name and address information clearly establish the identity of this person, the lender. So, kailangan din meron din yung detailed name and address nila. So, yung detailed information, same doon sa borrower. Okay? And we have the face value. So, ano ang face value? This is the borrowed principal. Okay, so ito yung hiniram. Halimbawa, ito yung humihiram. Miram ka ng 10,000 sa akin. Ayan. That's the face value. and it appears numerically and in writing to prevent it from being altered. So in simple interest calculations, this is the PP. Okay? And we have number 4, the issue date or the start date. So this is the date on which the promissory note is issued and forms the starting date of the transaction. Yan. So, humiram ka ngayon, ngayon yung start date ng promissory note mo, yung pagkakautang mo. And under promissory note, there is also a term, okay, wherein this is the length of time for which the face value is borrowed from the lender. So, in simple interest, when we are calculating the simple interest, this is the basis for the time period. So, naalala niyo yung formula natin, yan siya yung T, okay? So, yun yung term, yung usapan kung gaano katagal mo babayaran yung hiniram mo. And we have the interest rate, which is the percentage interest being charged along with the respective time frame for the interest. Halimbawa, monthly, annually, depende sa usapan ninyo kung paano mo babayaran. Okay? Ay, nabanggit ko kanina, meron ng weekly, monthly, or annually. Okay, meron ding semi-annually. And in simple interest calculations, this is the rate. Okay, yung interest rate natin. Ayan. So, note that in our illustration that the lender has decided to have an additional consequence for failing to pay back the $5,000 after 6 months. As written, any late payment continues to be charged 4% annual. Okay? Annual interest only. So, ito yung promissory note. Ayan, so looking at our promissory note, as written in here that any late payment will be continued to be charged 4% annually. Okay? And annual interest only. So, 4% siya. So, promissory notes are issued outside the normal banking system. So, it is up to the lender to determine the interest rate. And this results in the two types of promissory notes. Ayan. So, meron dalawang klase ng promissory notes. First one is the non-interest bearing notes. Ayan. So, in these cases, the lender has decided not to charge any interest. Okay? Kapag non-interest bearing notes, yung lender, pwede siyang mag-decide kung na hindi na magbibigay ng charge sa interest. Hence, making the interest rate 0%. Okay? Yan, 0%. And alternatively, the lender and borrower may decide to include, pwede silang mag-decide, magdagdag ng amount of interest in the face value specified on the note. Ayan, so sila na yung bahala doon when we talk about non-interest bearing notes. So halimbawa, since yung lender nag-decide not to charge any interest, kaya 0% sila, pwede rin na yung lender at borrower, sila pareho mag-decide kung magkano yung idadagdag nilang amount of interest doon sa face value. Okay? Yung hiniram. Halimbawa, 10,000, tapos ang usapan nila is babayaran nila after one year, pwede silang mag-decide kung magkano yung amount na idadagdag doon sa principal, okay? O yung face value. Halimbawa, magdagdag sila ng 100, gano'n. O, di ba? Napakabait ng lender. Gano'n. So, halimbawa dito, for example, the lender may borrow $5,000, but the note is written for $5,100 with no interest. So, in the case of non-interest bearing note, no calculation of interest. Siyempre, walang calculation of interest on the promissory note is needed to determine the amount that is due, as the face value equals to the maturity value. So, kung yung hiniram mo ay kung yung hiniram mo ay 5,100, so yan yung face value niya, ang babayaran mo sa pagdating ng maturity or due date is still $5,100. Okay? So, there is no calculation of interest on this promissory notes. Right? And we also have the interest-bearing notes. And in these cases, the lender has decided to charge interest on the face value. Okay? So, kung dito naman, magde-decide na yung lender kung magkano yung interest ng uutangin mo sa kanya. So, this requires you to calculate the simple interest on the face value. So, therefore, the maturity value is the face value plus the simple interest amount. Okay? So, halimbawa, nag-decide si lender, yung hiniram mong 5,000, syempre, babayaran mo yun after 1 year. O, paano kung nag-decide siya na meron siyang 5% interest monthly? Ayan. So, idadagdag yung monthly na yan doon sa face value, yung hiniram mong pera. Okay? That is interest-bearing notes. Now we go to the maturity value for interest-bearing notes. Okay, since yung non-interest, wala namang ika-calculate na interest. So, dito tayo sa maturity value for interest-bearing notes. Based on all of the elements included in the promissory note, the maturity date or end date of the maturity or promissory note must be determined. Okay, so it must be determined before the borrower and lender can calculate simple interest. So, kailangan na alam nila kung ano yung maturity date ng inutang at saka yung due date. Okay? Ayan. So, bago sila mag-compute ng interest. And this is the date upon which the promissory note needs to be repaid. Okay? So, their interest is still charged during those 3 days. So, halimbawa yung sinusunod na law, halimbawa may sinusunod tayong law sa pagpapautang, like the legal due date of a note is instead 3 days after the term is specified, which allowing the borrower time to repay the note without penalty in the event that the due date falls on a statutory holiday or weekend. Ayan, when it might not be possible to make the payment. Interest is still charged during those 3 days. So, depende dun sa decision ng lender and borrower. Okay? The 3 days grace period can be waived by the borrower by stating no grace on the promissory note. Ganon. And we have here the following rules which are used to determine the due date. So we have the specific date or number of days. Okay? For this, if the note states a specific maturity date or details the exact number of days, then the due date is 3 days later than the maturity date. Ganon. And for time period in months, if the note states a number of months, then it is due on the same date in the month, which it matures plus 3 days. Ganon. So, number of months, then it is due on the same date of the month. So, ganon. So, doon sa illustration natin ng promissory note, so the note it was issued on July 6, okay? Yan yung example natin ng promissory note. So, the note was issued on July 6, 2011. So, 6 months later is January. Ayan, kasi naka-indicate dito na magbabayad siya after 6 months. Okay? Ayan, 6 months later is January 6. Okay? Ayan, so January 6, 2012 na yon kasi July na yung start niyan. So after 6 months, January 6, 2012 na siya. Plus 3 days gives a legal due date on, plus 3 days yan, para sa legal due date niya on January 9, 2012. So, a special situation arises though if the note is issued near or at the end of a month. So, halimbawa, if the note is, for example, if the note is issued instead on August 31, 2011, so 6 months later, ayan, 6 months later is, so after 6 months niyan is February 31 kasi binibilang natin yung number of days. Okay, doon sa time period and months. Ano yung sinabi natin kanina? If the note states a number of months, then it is due on the same date in the month in which it matures plus 3 days. Okay? Since this date does not exist, okay, the rule is to use the last day of the month in which it matures. Okay? Therefore, the note has a maturity date of February 29, 2012 and plus 3 days, ayan, plus 3 days which gives a legal due date on. So, yung legal due date na niya would be on March 3, 2012. Okay? So, ayan. So, kagaya nung example natin na promissory note, so, yung nag-add na tayo ng tatlo dito, so, after 6 months, after the date, the sum of $5,000, ito na yung maturity date niya, January 9, 2012. And we have the formula. So, once you know already the legal due date, it's now time for us to calculate the time involved in the transaction using these methods. Okay? So, we have to calculate the maturity value using the formula. Ayan, S is equal to P times 1 plus RT. Okay? So, yung S natin is maturity value. The maturity amount is what the borrower must pay to the lender upon the maturity of the note. It includes both the face value and the interest together. So, yan yung maturity value. And P is the face value which is specified by the promissory note. Okay, kung magkano yung hiniram mo. And yung R is the interest rate which is specified by the promissory note. So, ensure that the rate is expressed in the same unit as time. Okay? And the time is the time period used is the amount of time between the issue date and legal due date of the note, which includes the 3 days of grace. So, in here, ensure also that the time is expressed in the same unit as the date. So, how does it work? So we have the maturity value of a single payment. Alright? So in here, the only nuance requiring close attention lies in determining the time period. So working with the previous promissory note, here in our illustration, we have to calculate the amount that John Smith, ayan, so we have to calculate the amount that John Smith owes to Bob Doe, okay, along with the amount of interest. So dito sa promissory note natin, so nangutang siya nung July 6, 2012, tama? Okay, so note that this promissory note is interest-bearing. Bakit siya interest-bearing? Kasi the interest rate of information is provided on the note. Yan, so it is provided. So, babayaran niya yung face value with interest at the rate of 4% annually. Alright, so we have here the face value, which is equal to $5,000, and the interest rate is 4%. Okay, and that is annually. Okay, so as included in the promissory note. And to calculate the time, so how are we going to calculate the time? So it is noted above. So yan, naka-note na dyan sa promissory note na example natin, that the legal due date of this promissory note is 6 months plus 3 days later. Okay, which is January 9, 2012. So, using the appropriate date method, so the days between the dates is equal to 187 days. Okay? So, 187 days. So, expressing the time annually to match the annual rate. So, yung time natin is equal to 187 days over the total number of days in a year, which is equal to 365. And substituting this one into the formula, so ano ulit yung formula natin? S is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So substitute. Yung P natin is $5,000 times 1 plus, so convert natin yung 4% into decimal. So this is equal to 0.4%. Okay? Times the time, which is 187 over 365. And this is now equal to $5,102.47. Okay? So, ayan. So, therefore, si John Smith needs to repay $5,102.47 to Bob on kailan? January 9, 2012. So, yan yung araw kung kailan niya babayaran yung inutang niya with the interest, 4% annually. Okay? So we have another example, maturity value of an interest-bearing promissory note. Ayan. So, Corey borrowed $7,500 from Miller Enterprises on March 31, 2011. An interest-bearing promissory note was created, indicating that the money was to be repaid 8 months. Okay? So, the money was to be repaid 8 months later at an interest rate of 6% annually. Calculate the maturity value of the promissory note on the legal due date. Okay? So, we have to calculate the value of the promissory note upon the legal due date using the stated interest rate. Okay, so identify muna natin yung face value natin. Our face value is $7,500. The rate is 6% per year. Yan, per year kasi naka-indicate doon na annually. Okay? And then, the time. So, the money was to be repaid 8 months. Alright? So, 8 months. Nakalagay na doon sa promissory note. So, what is the issue date? Issue date is on March 31, 2011. Ayan. 2011 yan. So, next is calculate the legal due date by determining the end of the term and adding 3 days. And then transform this date into the number of days. While the rate is annual, the time is in days. Okay? So yung rate, since the rate is annual, the time is in days. Okay? So yung 8 months natin. So, anong gagawin natin? We have to convert natin yung time into an annual number. Okay? So, 8 months after the issue date of March 31 is, ayan, so we have here November 31, 2011. Since November has how many days? It has only 30 days. So, use the last day of November as the maturity date. Okay? So, ano yung last day of November? Kasi 30 days lang si November. Kaya, gagamitin natin ay yung last day, which is November 30. Okay? As our maturity date. Ayan. So, yung November 30 is the maturity date. Since November 30 has only 30 days. And then, adding 3 days grace, kasi may grace period siya na 3 days, the legal due date is, so yung legal due date natin dyan, since nag-add tayo ng 3 araw, legal due date would be on December 3, 2011. So, therefore, the time frame is March 31 to December 3, 2011. By counting the days in between this one, so since mag-start tayo ng, ay dito na lang, sulat na lang natin. Counting the days since yung day na yan, so start tayo sa 1 plus 30 plus 31 plus 30 plus 31 plus 31 plus 30 plus 31 plus 30 plus 2. So, nag-start tayo ng March, tama? Ayan, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay, so yan, nandun na yung plus 3 natin, na grace period. Okay, or pwede yung calculator. So, this is equal to 247 days between these dates. Okay, from March 31 to December 3. Alright? So, 200. So, yung time natin, ayan, masyado na yatang magulo. So, yung time na natin is equal to 247 over 365 days in a year. Okay? And then, substitute na natin siya sa formula. Okay, using our formula, S is equal to P times 1 plus RT. Okay? So, yung face value natin is, ano yung face value? 7,500 times 1 plus the rate, which is 6%. Convert it to decimal, which equal to 0.6 times the time, 247 over 365. And this is now equal to $7,804.52. Okay? 2 yan. So, Cory. So, dito na, Cory owes Miller Enterprises $7,804.52 upon the legal due date for the promissory note. Okay? So, yan yung gamit ng interest-bearing promissory note. Okay? By paying the maturity value. So, dito, selling a promissory note before it matures. So, dito, 2 months ago, you established a promissory note to lend your friend the $5,000 to help him start his entrepreneurial venture. Di ba? Naalala mo yon yung nagpahiram ka ng 5,000 sa friend mo. Now, you have unexpectedly lost your job. Unexpectedly, natanggal ka sa trabaho and find yourself in need of the money. So, kailangan mo na yung pera mo na pinahiram mo sa friend mo. However, the notes does not require your friend to repay. Hindi nakalagay doon sa note na yung friend mo have to repay the debt for another 4 months. Ayan. Kasi 2 months ago pa lang. So, is there any way that you can access your money? So, meron bang way para ma-access mo yung pera mo? So, during the life of a promissory note, ayan, its holder or the lender may be unable to wait until the end of the term to get paid back and so sell the note to another investor. Ayan, since kailangan mo na yung pera mo kasi nga natanggal ka sa trabaho. So, pwede mong ipagbili. Okay? You can sell the note to another investor just to ano yan? Kasi hindi mo na mahintay yung end of the term na pinag-usapan ninyo na naka-indicate doon sa promissory note. So just to get paid back, you have to sell the note to another investor. Alright? And it is generally up to both parties. Okay? So, depende naman sa both parties to negotiate a fair interest rate for the sale of the note. And this interest rate might be based on prevailing interest rates in the market at the time of the sale or just a mutually agreed upon rate. Okay? So, this negotiated interest rate is sometimes called as, so we call it as discount rate. Okay? Ayan, discount rate. Since the process to sell the note requires removal of interest. Okay? It requires the removal of interest from the maturity value of the promissory note. Ayan. So, paano? So, how does it work? When selling a promissory note before its maturity date, so meron tayong 3 steps procedure to follow. Step 1 is identify the promissory note information and selling information. For the promissory note, this includes the face value of the promissory note, the agreed upon interest rate, and the legal due date. Okay, so yan. And for selling the note, the discount rate and the time of the sale must be known. So, dapat alam din nila yung discount rate tsaka yung time. Just like this. Okay, so kailangan alamin yung promissory note information. Okay, so dito yung issue date, so the rate of interest until doon sa selling information. So, yung promissory note, kasali dyan yung face value. Okay, syempre yung kung magkano yung pinahiram mo, face value at kung kailan siya na-issue. Okay? And then the agreed upon interest rate. Ayan, kung magkano with the legal due date. Okay, legal due date or yung maturity value. Kung kailan mo babayaran yung face value na hiniram mo. And for step 2, calculate the maturity value. Okay, calculate the maturity value of the promissory note itself. Okay, using the face value, promissory note rate of interest, and the time period involved with the legal due date. And for yung step 3, calculate the present value of the note at the date of sale using the maturity value of the note, the new discount rate, and the time between the date of the sale and the legal due date. So, ayan. And assuming that in the example na that you negotiated an interest rate of 6% with the buyer of the promissory note and that the date of sale was September 15, 2011. So, ito yung timeline niya. So, it illustrates the two steps. Okay? So, ano ba yung two steps natin? So, we already determined the or identify the promissory note information and the selling information. So, the date of sale is September 15, 2011. Okay? Yung present value niya is $5,006.99 from the face value of 5,000. Okay? So, for the promissory note, the face value, which is $5,000, and the interest rate, which is 4% annually, and the time is from July 6, tama? Yes. July 6 to January 9 as the legal due date. So, it was previously calculated as yung time natin, which is 187 days. Okay? So, ni-calculate natin kanina yung legal due date niya, which is equal to the 187 days, yung time. So, for selling the note, the discount rate is 6% and the selling date is on September 15, 2011, which works out to 116 days. Okay? So, yan. Days before the legal due date. So, it works out to 116 days before the legal due date. And then, applying the formula, so, by applying the formula, so ano ulit yung formula natin? S is equal to P times 1 plus RT. Okay? So we have to calculate the maturity value of the promissory note on the legal due date. So from our previous calculations, ano yung promissory note natin? So it is worth $5,102.99. $0.47 on January 9, 2012. Okay? When the borrower repays the note, this is the value that the investor purchasing the note receives in the future. So, ito yung value. Since you are selling it, kasi nga kailangan mo na ng pera. So, this is the value that the investor purchasing yung notes natin. Okay? Notes in the future. So, now, sell the note using the discount rate and time before the legal due date. So, applying the formula, rearrange and solve for the new face value, which is equal to $5,102.47. Okay? 1 plus yung 6%, so 0.6. Okay, so this is now equal to 5,006.99. Okay? So this amount is how much the buyer of the promissory note pays, okay, based on the negotiated interest rate. So this is sometimes called as proceeds. Okay, so tinatawag natin siya as proceeds, which is the amount of money received from sale. Okay? So I repeat, proceeds. So ito yung bagong amount which we call as proceeds. So that is the amount of money received from sale. Okay? So the buyer now holds the promissory note and receives the full payment of, so ito na yung na-receive niya, $5,102.47 on this date, January 19, 2012, from the borrower. And this earns the buyer a 6% rate of interest on the investment. Okay? So, if the original promissory note is non-interest bearing, remember that you can skip the second step. Okay? Since the face value of the note equals the maturity value upon the legal due date. Kasi nga, non-interest bearing siya. Hindi mo na kailangang mag-calculate, okay, ng interest kasi nga, non-interest. So, kung magkano lang yung pinahiram mo, yun lang din yung ibabalik sa'yo. And there are things to watch out for when working with the sale of a promissory note to another investor. So, the most common mistake here is to mix up the interest rates. Okay? And remember that you use the original stated interest rate of the promissory note in calculating the maturity value on the legal due date. So, when calculating the selling price, you must use the new negotiated rate to discount the maturity value. So, wag mong i-add up doon sa naunang promissory note na interest. So, dadami naman yun, masyado ng malaki. Okay, and next, deciding that you need the money sooner. Okay, so magde-decide ka na kung that you are needing the money. So, we have here an example. On April 30, 2011, Bernie purchased some furniture from France Fine Furniture on a 10-month no-payment plan. A promissory note was created establishing an interest rate of 11%, and it included the clause, no grace. The furniture purchase was for $2,234.40. On August 12, 2011, France Fine Furniture sold the promissory note to an investor and at an agreed-upon interest rate of 13%. So, what were the proceeds of the sale? So, ano na yung mga proceeds ng sale? Okay, so the following information about the promissory note and sale are here, yung original promissory note. The issue date is on April 30, 2011. Okay, so ito yung original. Yung face value niya is $2,234.40. Term is 10 months, no grace. The rate is 11% per year. Okay, 11% per year. And sale of promissory note, the selling date is on August 12, 2011. Discount rate is 13% per year. So, what are you going to do now? Calculate the legal due date accounting for the no grace clause and transform it into the number of days expressed annually. Okay? So, number of days expressed annually. So, yung term doon sa original na promissory note is 10 months. So, express natin yan into number of days between the legal due date and the sale date, expressing it annually to match the interest rate. Okay? So, para mag-match yung term doon sa interest rate. So, anong gagawin natin? Just to arrive at the maturity value, apply natin yung formula. Okay? So, ano ulit yung formula? So, we have S equals to P times 1 plus R times T. Okay? So, to arrive at the present value using the new interest rate, so we have applied the formula and rearranging for PP. Okay? So, 10 months, dito tayo sa side. 10 months from, so 10 months from April 30, 2011 is, so after 10 months, that would be February 30, 2012, which is adjusted to the last day of the month. Okay? So, adjusted to the last day of the month. Ano yung last day ng February? 29. Okay? 2012. So, dito, there is no grace period is added. According to the promissory note, no grace. So, no grace period is added. And by counting the days in between this month, from April 30 to February 29, so, ayan, isulat na lang natin. 1, so April 30, since last day yan, mag-start ka na ng May 1. Then, next month is 31 days plus 30 days plus 31 days, 31, 30, 30 plus 31 plus 30 plus 31 plus 31 plus 29. Since 10 months yan, so that is equal to 305 days between these dates. Okay, April 30 to February 30 or 29, 2012. Okay, so yung time na natin is expressed as 305 over 365 annually. Okay? So, using a selling date of August 12, yan. So, this is the selling date, di ba? So, sale date on August 12, 2011, and the legal due date, which is, kasi na yung legal due date natin? February 29. Okay? So, yan yung legal due date. So, by counting the days in between this one, so, ilan? So, yung legal due date natin is Feb 29, 2012. So, count natin yung days between these dates. Alright? So, we have 19 plus 30 plus 31 plus 30 plus 31 plus 31 plus 29. Okay, so 31 January, December, November, October, September, and August. O, diba? August 12. So, may natirang 19 days. So, add natin. And this would be equal to 201 days. Okay, so, yung time dito is now equal to 201 over 365 days. And it is expressed annually. Okay, so ito yung 365 total number of days in a year. And then, substitute na natin yung value doon sa formula. So, this is equal to $2,234.40 times 1 plus 0.11, yung 11% natin, times 305 over 365 total number of days. And this is now equal to $2,234.40. Okay? And then, the other one is, substitute natin. So, dito, $2,439.781 times 201 over 365 is equal to $2,276.79. So when Friends Find Furniture sold the note to the investor, the proceeds is, ayan, so ito na yung proceeds niya, which is equal to $2,276. Okay? Another one. The sale of a non-interest-bearing promissory note. So, kanina, interest. Okay, interest-bearing promissory note. Ito naman, the sale of a non-interest-bearing promissory note. So, a non-interest-bearing promissory note was issued on January 31 with a face value of $10,000 and a term of 8 months. On May 28, the note was sold. Okay? Binenta mo yung note to an investor at an agreed upon interest rate of 5% per year, so annually. What was the sale price of the promissory note? Since meron na siyang 5% interest. So, let us assume that February is in a non-leap year. Okay? So, non-leap year, ibig sabihin 29 days. 28. Okay? So, since we assume February is in a non-leap year. So, we have here the following about the promissory note and the sale. So, original promissory note, issued date is on January 31 with a term of 8 months. Face value of $10,000 with 0% rate of interest. So, since it is a non-interest bearing promissory note. And for the sale of promissory note, the selling date is on May 28 with a discount rate of 5% per year. So, we have to calculate the legal due date, okay? So, calculate natin yung legal due date by adding 3 days. And calculate also the number of days between the legal due date and the sale date, expressing it annually. So, express natin siya annually para mag-match doon sa interest rate natin. Okay, so the promissory note is non-interest bearing, so the maturity value equals the face value. Kasi nga, 0% siya. Okay? O, 0%. And so, to arrive at the present value using the new rate interest, ayan, so, gagamitin natin yung new rate interest na sinasabi dito. Okay? We have to apply again the formula. So, what are we going to do? We have to add 8 months. Magdagdag tayo ng 8 months to January 31. Okay, so yung January 31 natin, mag-add tayo ng 8 months. Kasi yun yung term. Tama? So yung term natin, so from January 31 plus 8 months, so we will arrive at September 31. And adjust this to the last day of the month since September has only 30 days. Kaya September 30. And adding 3 days grace gives you the legal due date of plus 3 days. Okay. Doon sa legal due date. Okay. So, yung date na yan ay October 3. Okay. So, that would be October 3. So, ngayon, using a selling date, so we have to use the selling date which is, so ano yung selling date? May 28. Okay? So, yan yung sale date niya. And the legal, legal due date is on October 3. Okay? So, yan na yung legal due date niya, October 3. So, anong gagawin natin? We have to count the days in between these dates. So, from May 28 to October 3. So, mag-start tayo ng 4 kasi May 28 plus 4. So, start tayo ng 4 plus 30, April yan. 31, June. Next, July, August, 30 plus October na 2 kasi hanggang 3 yung yung legal due date niya. Or you can use the calculators to determine the number of days. So this is now equal to 128 days. Okay? This is between the dates May 28 to October 3. So yung time natin, is equal to 128 days over 365 expressed annually. Alright? So, from our formula, arriving at our formula, P times 1 plus RT. So, this is now equal to, so yung 10,000, okay, 10,001 plus 0.05. Yan yung interest, okay? Times 128 over 365. And this is equal to $9,827.68. Okay? So, we assume a non-leap year of 2011 and use the date function to calculate the number of days So, the promissory note was sold for, ayan, so the promissory note was sold for $9,827.68 on kailan? May 28. Okay, so it was sold on May 28 since we assume a non-leap year of 2011. Okay, so that is all about promissory note and discount note. So, kapag ikaw ay nagpapautang, so kailangan sumunod doon sa mga nakalagay sa promissory note. Okay? So, kapag kailangan mo na ng pera, pwede mong ibenta yung note with a new with ang tawag doon, bagong negotiation. Okay? So, it depends sa'yo at saka sa bagong investor kung magkano yung idadagdag ninyong interest. It's depende rin kung monthly, yearly, okay, or semi-annually, gano'n. Okay, so I hope you understand our discussion about promissory note and discount note. For your activity, just solve what is being asked in each of the following. So, madali lang ito kaysa dun sa discussion, I think. Right? So, for number 1, a simple interest note for 120 days at 13.8% per annum has a maturity value of 5,753 pesos. So, what is the face value? O, madali lang, di ba? And for number 2, determine the interest and maturity value if a simple interest note signed on October 29, 2001. So, follow nyo lang yung example natin kanina para hindi kayo mahilo. Okay? And again, show your complete solutions. Alright? So, that ends our discussion for our week 5. So, I hope you're ready now for your exam, prelim. So, see you again next time. Thank you and have a nice day.